Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome here at Crypto Hash Review, where we educate and disseminate information about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies from a Muslim perspective. And we are continuing on our discussion about addressing the objections made by religious figures towards the Bitcoin network. And we are on point number 5, where we mentioned, and I quote, the owner of the website, the Bitcoin website, can shut it down when they like. This one was an interesting point. Let me explain further. We have a system which is run by anonymous figures, not a government system that we can trust in the government, but a system that is non-government backed. And the people behind the system, at any time, they can just shut down the system, and then where's your money gone? The money's disappeared. And I think those who have been following our previous videos will understand already where I'm going to address how I'm going to address this objection. Number one, there is no Bitcoin website. Bitcoin isn't a website. It's a network in of itself. So if I was to broadcast a transaction, it would go towards a node, and that other node would tell another node, and they will broadcast amongst themselves in a cascade effect until every other node has it, including the miners themselves, and then the miners will do whatever. So the point is, there is no way to block or shut down the system, number one. Number two, you yourself could be a node. So you could have your computer connected to the internet, and you could broadcast your transaction to yourself. And therefore, you can, from your node, will broadcast to other nodes and so on and so forth. So if you are worried about other people's system shutting down, your system will be up and you can continue going, and your Bitcoin will be guaranteed from your own node itself. So Bitcoin itself being a system that can be just shut down by individuals. The analogy I've given before is like the Quran. If someone said, can you destroy the Quran? To be honest, you could, in theory, but how would you do so? Because there's no way to know who has memorized the whole Quran in order to find them and kill them. Same thing with the Bitcoin network, which is actually even more so. There are nodes scattered throughout the internet, all different countries, all different places, and they're all running the same network, and we have no idea where they are, what they're doing, where they live. They're just there. So in order to shut down the network, what you have to do is literally find every computer on planet Earth, wipe their hard drives clean, and therefore you can guarantee that the Bitcoin network is gone. But in order to do so, what you're probably going to find is that all other systems will also be destroyed in the process. So it's not a system that can easily be just destroyed by flicking a switch. Even when it comes to the internet, some may say, oh, how about if you just shut down the internet? Okay, let's assume for the second that the internet itself globally just shut down. The data is still on the servers. So as soon as the internet comes back up again, then the Bitcoin network still exists, number one. And number two, ironically, there is a satellite in space that actually beams down all transactions to planet Earth. So even if you live in a location that actually has no internet access, you can still receive the Bitcoin updates and still receive Bitcoin transactions. Literally, you just get a satellite that you have like a sky dish, point it in a certain direction, and you can receive a stream of constant information about Bitcoin. So it's not as simple as just flicking the switch to shut it down. You're looking at destroying the internet as we know it, as well as all satellites in space, in order to achieve that goal. Now, it's true, the Bitcoin network could have been shut down at the very beginning, maybe when Satoshi and Hal Finney was probably trying to set up the network themselves. But it's now grown to a level, I mean, just like the Quran itself, if, just for the sake of a mind exercise or experiment, this is for the sake of, you had Messenger of Allah and the Sahaba, maybe there was 10 of them. If those 10 people had died, then the Quran had been lost. That's a fact. But the fact is that the Quran had spread to so many people that it had now become impossible to destroy. That's what makes the Quran so amazing as a miraculous book, that it is now preserved forever by its being spread throughout the nation and memorized in the hearts and chests of man, read from cover to cover every year during Ramadan. It's impossible to destroy the Quran. Theoretically, it's possible, but practically, it's impossible. Likewise, the Bitcoin network is practically impossible to shut down. But more importantly, this demonstrates a misunderstanding of what Bitcoin actually is. What is the network of Bitcoin? What is a Bitcoin? If a person thinks that a Bitcoin is a website that someone can just switch off, then that demonstrates that the person has not fully understood how Bitcoin functions. Another point that I failed to mention was that this description of shutting down a system, Bitcoin, and losing all your money, the irony of that scenario is that that is more so the case with fiat money than it is with Bitcoin. Let me explain. There have been many cases, multiple cases in history, recent history even, where governments have made decisions to just end certain denominations of currencies or just replace currencies altogether with a brand new currency, reissuing this one, eliminating that one, basically shutting down the system. And that never stopped anyone saying that that was actually currency. In fact, what you do find is that many scholars have actually made a condition that the government must say currency is currency for it to be currency. That's a funny one, isn't it? The government must say that currency is this currency so that it can be currency. And what that does basically is it allows government, it gives them the power to basically wipe out the wealth of their people. And unfortunately, we have seen in our lifetimes this actually happen, as we've seen in Zimbabwe, as we saw in Venezuela, as we saw in Lebanon just last year. And we've seen it in country after country after country, in Weimar Republic back in the 1920s. It has happened time and time again where governments, through their policies and their actions, have literally wiped out the money and the wealth of their people. And the people could do nothing about it. There's nothing they could do about it. We've seen images in Germany just before the Second World War where people are walking around with wheelbarrows of money, where the money the wheelbarrow was carrying was less than the value of the wheelbarrow itself. That's how insane the hyperinflation happened, due to the government before Hitler was printing their currency into oblivion. And this is what happens, and this is what we've been suffering with fiat currency. And this is essentially why Bitcoin came into existence in the first place, due to the powers that have been given to the governments and to the banks, and what they do with their powers. Bitcoin sought to address this issue. So now the power no longer exists with any individual, rather the code or the plan has been set in motion and it will never change. So there'll be 21 million Bitcoins that will ever be issued. They can never have any more printed, so therefore be printed into oblivion through hyperinflation. And like that, it will stay and it will stick. So no one can just decide one day, because they want to go to war with their neighbors, to just print to buy more weapons and to destroy the wealth of the people. That can't be the case. Or most recently, like what happened in India, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a certain denomination of, I think, rupee or whatever their currency is. I think it was 500, or I don't know what denomination it was, but overnight they announced in the morning that by noontime this denomination of money will no longer exist, and that banks should no longer accept it as currency. So literally, if you woke up late that day, your money that was in your house of that denomination was wiped off the face of the earth. And there was a mad rush of people to go to the banks to try and cash in that denomination of money, to get it converted to another denomination. Why did they do so? Their claim was to address crime. So there was a lot of criminal activity and criminals taking this denomination of money and obviously keeping it in cash. So they wanted to try and, you can say, wipe out their wealth by preventing them from, because they can't take the money to the bank, because otherwise they'll have to answer, where did you get these thousands and thousands of pounds worth of this money in the space of a day? And if they can't prove where they got money from, therefore their money has now been rendered worthless. whatever the explanation, whatever the reason actually is, or whatever the reason really was, the point was the government made a decision that this money or this type of money no longer exists. It is no longer money. You can no longer spend with it. You can no longer send it to, you can no longer just put it, deposit into the bank. It's now pieces of paper. You can might as well use it as toilet paper. And that is literally the example of switching off the system with a switch. So I put forward a proposal. If this suggestion, this thing here is why Bitcoin is not money, then I suggest, and I put forward a proposal that all our fiat money is not money and Bitcoin is the only thing that is money. Because Bitcoin is the only system that can't be shut down with a flick of a switch, whereas fiat money can be switched off. We trust that the government won't do so, but it doesn't mean they can't do so if they wanted to. Anyway, we hope you find this video beneficial. If you like this video, please press the like button. If you want to contact us for whatever reason, you can find us on cryptohashreview.com. And please subscribe to our channel, join our mailing list, and have a nice evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.